It plays a major part in the video game world.
You have your programming and your design, which is 1/3. You have your visual, animation, motion capture, that's 1/3. And you have your audio, which is 1/3.
And has grown, just like the industry that leads it.
Back then, when I was growing up, it was all about bleeps and bloops. When the music was doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Originally with video games, it was so limited by what the systems can do. It was just like, God, it's almost painful to listen to some of the music they put in those early Atari games.
But the people who create it often go unrecognized.
I know the games and I know the music, but again, the composer name.
And now Icons gives credit where credit is due. This is the story behind the magic of music and gaming. Say, oh yeah! Oh yeah! Groovy! Back in the time of big hair and Reaganomics, music and gaming was little more than beeps and boops. But despite these technical limitations, a small group of talented music makers began to make their mark on the gaming world. Two of these pioneers were Clint Bajakian and George Sanger, aka the Fat Man. But like many others, they had humble beginnings.
The Fat Man, George Sanger, was a promising physics engineering major in a small liberal arts college in California. There was the potential for him to do something really great in the scientific world, but he got distracted by a couple of things. Number one is that the band was doing very well, you know, and the promise of being a rock star seemed very nice.
I marched in a marching band at my elementary school in Concord, Massachusetts. Then I moved on to guitar, and I just started to play, you know, rock and roll and folk and everything.
These two aspiring musicians become inspired by greatness.
I had this idea that the Beatles just sort of stood out above everything else in my life. And I thought, what is it about them that makes them so great? And how can I capture that and emulate it and spread that kind of goodness to people?
I then discovered that I really loved classical music, mostly through Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And it was then that I decided to get formal with the guitar. I took classical guitar at the New England Conservatory, also majored in music theory, and then finally got my master's in composition at the University of Michigan.
It seemed like in normal music, that all the trees had been cut down in that forest, you know what I mean? So I decided nonetheless, I'd dedicate myself to my band because that seemed like the thing to do, and my grades kind of fell off a little bit in the physics area. And I got myself a music major.
Fate steps in right around graduation.
I was just finishing up my master's degree at the University of Michigan, about to step off into the real world, and I got a phone call from an old friend of mine, Michael Land, who had answered an ad in a newspaper in the San Francisco Bay Area for a composer and a programmer, and he could do both. It turned out to be, at that time, Lucasfilm Games Division. He got the job as the one-man sound department, and very quickly, in 1991, the need for full-length scores came into being, and he gave me a call, and I moved out to the Bay Area in a heartbeat.
Soon after, Clint is working on his first game.
It was Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis with Hal Barwood. As well as The Secret of Monkey Island with Ron Gilbert.
And the Fat Man begins to make a name for himself.
After college ended, the band broke up. And there I was, promising smart guy, should have had a career, and I got nothing but this strange admiration of games, which seemed like rock and roll used to be. By a stroke of luck, a friend of my brother was in the television company, and I offered to empty his wastebaskets for free if he'd let me into the game business somehow. He said, well, you're a musician, aren't you? And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, no, I'm not really a musician. He said, well, write a tune for this game, and I did. I rose and rose. I was about the only person in the business for many years.
He puts together an ensemble of musicians called Team Fat, and together they begin to make musical history.
It was a game called Wing Commander. The producer, Chris Roberts, said, "Can you do something that's sort of like Star Wars and sort of like Star Trek the movie?" It was unquestionably not just a breakthrough game for having introduced this idea of cinematics in a way that no one had experienced before. It also introduced the idea of orchestral soundtracks in a way that no one had approached before.
The Fat Man started all out. I mean, he was the one who started us in this industry. So you just gotta tip your hat.
Meanwhile, Clint Bajakian makes some of the most memorable music and gaming at LucasArts.
It was extremely exciting. When I first started out, I was with Michael Land and Peter McConnell. Michael Land is known for The Dig, the Monkey Island scores in the beginning. Peter McConnell composed Full Throttle. And he composed Grim Fandango.
And he has a hand in creating a groundbreaking interactive music engine called iMuse.
Michael and Peter really authored it, but I was on the fringes as a user and giving them advice. And the iMuse system was patented with the government. It was touted as being the only really hot interactive sound and music system in the industry at the time.
I'm surprised no one ever really caught on to this in a big way. But the idea that LucasArts had, whereas as you're playing the game, the music shifts depending on how you're doing within the game and the events that are taking place.
It won't do anything.
And that was just a phenomenal breakthrough, a phenomenal idea.
Houston gives us the go-ahead. Say when, boss. Do it.
With the arrival of CD-ROM games, George Sanger and Team Fat become trailblazers once again with The Seventh Guest.
Once we've gotten to the CD era, though, you've really seen that people started putting a lot more time and effort and energy into this, going in and recording not only synthesizers, but bands, in some cases, orchestras.
It was at a time that games hadn't really experienced a lot of audio experimentation yet either. And so the game developers left me alone, let me do something fairly brave with the music.
Now we're seeing especially that using a full-on orchestra as opposed to MIDI, it's more the standard. People aren't afraid to do it anymore. They're putting in the time and effort and money to do it because games have become a production on par with movies.
The music composed by the Fat Man and Clint Bajakian leads gaming to another level.
That's the stuff that really set the tone for the idea that we were going to have these real scores, these real arrangements, and this real lush feeling behind a game.
And while they would never guess it, these two pioneers will help pave the road for a new batch of game music makers.
Good shooting, mister.
The Fat Man and Clint Bajakian, two very different music makers, have opened the door for followers. Like Tommy Tallarico, whose musical ambitions have him leaving his home in Springfield, Massachusetts.
When I turned 21, I decided I'm going to go up to California. I'm going to do the whole, be a rock star, move to Hollywood thing. So I literally got in my car, packed up, didn't have any money, didn't have a place to stay, didn't know anyone, nothing. Just wanted to be a musician. I drove all the way across country. I showed up in Hollywood.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the world in Japan, another future music maker gets his first exposure to some American tunes.
When I was junior high, I always listened to Led Zeppelin. And in the high school, I was addicted with listening to the contemporary jazz and punk and progressive rock together. So it was very mixed in various kinds of generations, like 70s or 60s. And European music, American music, Japanese music. So it's all mixed together.
But things for Tommy in Hollywood aren't so glamorous.
So I picked up a newspaper, and I saw a job for selling keyboards at a guitar center, a national music chain. And I said, well, I can do that, I guess. I don't know. I went there, and I got the job that same day. I was homeless at the time. I was sleeping on the beach. I didn't have any money. And they said, you start tomorrow. So I started tomorrow.
But an amazing stroke of luck changes his life forever.
Next day, I come in, the very first person who walked in, I was wearing a video game t-shirt that day. First person who walked in happened to be a producer at Virgin, Virgin Records and Virgin Airlines, and they were starting a new video game company. And they said, hey, we're looking to hire people for video games.
And just like that, Tommy gets his first job in the gaming industry. But it doesn't have anything to do with music.
Now, I was originally hired as a games tester because they didn't need a music thing because they were just starting out. And I said, look, whenever you need music, let me know. I'll do it for free. If you don't like it, don't use it, don't pay me, whatever. I'll do it for free.
And Tommy's persistence soon pays off.
I'd bug them every single day. And finally, they gave me a shot to do music for a game called Prince of Persia. And I learned everything I could, and I sat down with the programmer, and I didn't know anything, but I knew music. And we implemented it, and the rest is history, as they would say.
Back in Japan, Masiya begins a career of his own.
I was a signed artist with Sony Music. I was composing music by using computer. And I have the partner, female singer, and just a two-people band.
But the regular musician gets an itch.
I wanted to do much more something. So game will be very easy to combine the various kinds of impressions together. So I moved to the game industry.
Back in America, Tommy begins to gain notoriety. And a big part of that is due to an earthworm named...
So that was really fun. And I'd come up with the voicings, the sound effects, and the music was kind of wacky and zany.
Earthworm Jim is so successful that a sequel is made. Wow. Around the same time, Masiya gets a letter that will jumpstart his music career.
I got a letter from Vice President of the Sony Computer Japan. In the letter was, I want to make something on the PlayStation. That's it.
How can I do that? And development of a strange new PlayStation game begins in secret.
And during the development of the Parappa 1, almost no one didn't know about that.
You gotta do what? I gotta believe!
And the very end of the development, still the many people didn't think this is a game.
Kick, punch, punch.
Parappa the Rapper is released for the PlayStation in 1996.
Once more now, kick, punch, block. Kick, punch, block.
And the response in Japan is incredible.
A game like Parappa the Rapper, it's perhaps the first truly musical video game. It's almost like a hip-hop Moulin Rouge sort of thing, you know what I mean? Where the music is so in there and seriously enhances the gameplay.
Some catchy tunes are a huge part of Parappa's success.
All right, we're here, just sitting in the car. I want you to show me if you can get far.
They found a way to take the music and make the music so much a part of the game that the fact that it was great music really enhanced the gameplay.
That's because you just got your license.
And Tommy Tallarico sets another benchmark.
I was the first musician to ever do a video game soundtrack album. In 1994, I had a worldwide record release on Capitol Records called Tommy Tallarico's Greatest Hits Volume 1.
But some people aren't impressed.
I think the gamers, if they like the music, they'll listen to it when they play the game. I don't think you're going to see much of an urge for people to be driving around in the car, you know, blasting the soundtrack, you know, to a Final Fantasy or Earthworm Jim. You know, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Tommy isn't deterred.
The last CD soundtrack I did was for the James Bond game, Tomorrow Never Dies. And this is cool. You know, that's really neat.
With the success of people like Clint Pajakian and Tommy Tallarico, a whole new generation of music makers begin appearing, and a bit of Hollywood influence will soon make its way into gaming. As the quality of music and gaming grows, Hollywood begins to take notice. Soon, music makers from Tinseltown try their hand at making music for a different medium.
One day I was at E3, and I was looking at a game that had a very nice John Williams-like score. And I wasn't wearing the outfit I asked the guy at the booth, said, wow, I said, who wrote that music? And he said, well, I probably shouldn't tell you this because it's a secret, but John Williams wrote that music. I said, whoa, man.
Perhaps one of the most active Hollywood musicians to cross over is Scott Gershon.
I started originally doing cartoons. I did Defenders of the Earth, I did Transformers, G.I. Joe. Then I made my way into television, a TV show called Beauty and the Beast. I've been very fortunate, I think, in my life to work on a variety of shows. I've done a lot of work with Oliver Stone. I really liked working, Born on the 4th of July was special to me. So was JFK. It was just a very interesting way of utilizing sound design in a musical fashion and being able to have emotional impact with it. It was also fun working with John Williams.
Scott's first video game project is a remake of a classic.
My first game was Pitfall Harry, the Might Adventure with Activision.
And he has an easy time translating his skills from TV and film to games.
The technology we always used in film were samplers and synthesizers. So when I saw a lot of the game consoles, to me they were just another synthesizer. So all of the memory constraints and everything else that we had to deal with was just par for the course. And I don't know, I've always been a fan of games. And we just kind of grew it from there.
And like many others before him, he pushes the envelope.
With Pitfall, when I saw the engine, I said, great, could we do interactive music? I want to be able to turn tracks on and off. I want to do this, I want to do that. And they're all looking, going, well, yeah, the box can do it, but we don't have the software. I said, great, can we make it? Can we write the software? Yay, you know, and we did.
But Hollywood hotshots aren't the only people getting involved. A new breed of young composers blaze their own trails. Stephen Rippey and Kevin McMullen's work on Age of Mythology from Ensemble Studios is a great example of modern sound design and music in gaming.
We started off the project knowing that we wanted to build up our libraries as much as we could. We took trips to the zoo, some water parks, and around the office with mics and tape recorders, and we hit things, and we hit each other, and we yelled and screamed. And at the end of the day, we have what we hope sounds like a bunch of Minotaurs and Pegasi.
In this game, we've integrated a lot of live instrumentation. Bring them in and incorporate them into the music. And this music system is also a dynamic music system. So while you're playing the game, it changes moods based on what's going on, whether there's a lot of action or if you've had a big loss, the music seamlessly mixes down to sort of a mellow mix version. And then if there's a big battle, the battle music cuts in and it's this big orchestral kind of thing.
Scott's work is good, and the work keeps coming in.
We've done a lot. One of the things was I was the lead designer at SoundLux and created SoundLux DMG. I'm the founder of it. The things we've done is Rainbow Six.
Man down. Need some backup now.
We've done all the Quakes. Been able to do Undying. We've been doing McWarrior too, and on and on and on.
But Scott enjoys the anonymity and never forgets that it's all about the games.
When somebody sees one of my projects, whether it's a game or a movie, I actually don't want them to be concerned who I am. I don't want people to know who I am, because I want them to enjoy the movie or the game. They shouldn't be going, wow, what great music, what great sound design. Because if they do that, they're not enjoying it. I'm taking them out of that.
Music in games has made progress in leaps and bounds, and nobody forgets how it all began.
Back then, when I was growing up, it was all about bleeps and bloops. When the music was doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Originally with video games, it was so limited by what the systems can do. It's just like, God, it's almost painful to listen to some of the music they put in those early Atari games.
You know, these kind of annoying, repetitive, catchy sometimes tunes.
It was the kind of thing, if you turned it up too loud, you felt like your speaker was going to explode.
They're putting out soundtrack albums, and it's been a funny progression.
Yeah. I think we're at a great stage in video games right now, and things are only going to get better from here. And as far as the music goes, it's better than it's ever been before. And I'm sure the future holds more interesting twists and turns.
And the industry is still evolving.
It's a constant learning process, and you just get to expand and expand. I don't see how I will ever run out of new and exciting things to learn about music or sound or the applications of those in a game. So hopefully we get to keep doing it for a while.
It's so exciting to be in the video game industry right now. It's such a new industry, yet we forge ahead every single day.
It's an amazing industry. It's just been fun. I mean, the graphics have grown, the technology has grown. The ability for us to be more powerful with audio has expanded incredibly.
And while things just keep getting better, the true trailblazers have a bit of advice for the next generation.
The first thing I would do is study an instrument. Piano is a very good foundational instrument, but any instrument is important. Flute, guitar, trumpet, drums. And keep an eye on the games industry. Play games, enjoy games, read the periodicals about games, and try to get to know people who create games, because that's where the real war stories happen. That's where the real rubber hits the road.
Okay, that's it.